The future of social media for recruiters, presented by myself. If we haven't met before, my name is James Whitelock, and I'm the managing director of Thinking Circles. And Thinking Circles is a marketing agency that specifically works with recruitment agencies, HR businesses, and suppliers into the recruitment space. I always make this joke. This is me looking a little bit angry at the last Recruitment Expo. This is the best photo I could get of myself presenting. They all look a little angry, I'm afraid. So I don't know. Obviously, I was kind of in a bad mood that day. But there's a few kind of details about Think Circles and myself, and you can scan the QR code if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn. So anyone who's kind of seen me present before is I like a stat. So I always kind of start the presentations with a few stats around kind of the subject that we're talking about. So some of the kind of really kind of global stats around around social media usage over the kind of this year and the past few years. Over half the global population are social media users. So that's a lot of that's a big potential audience. When we ever kind of get that question, no, I don't think the people I'm looking for are on social, I can almost guarantee you that they are on there somewhere. They just might not be exactly where you are looking for them. So that's always kind of something to kind of keep in mind. Social media users use on average 7.2 different social media platforms. I don't know what the 0.2 is. I don't know if they're kind of spending just 1 hour or something on TikTok. But basically, they are spreading their kind of social media usage across quite a few platforms now. So that's obviously they're spending time on the likes of Facebook and TikTok, which we will kind of is the next stat is that 44% of TikTok users will be under 25 by this year. So if that's the kind of age group that you are looking to kind of connect with, that is probably the place to be doing it at the minute. We have seen a huge uptake in interest in the businesses that we work with wanting to have a TikTok presence. So much so that we felt obliged to actually have our own TikTok presence based on the fact that we were getting asked to do it so often. And we've actually found it incredibly useful. And it definitely is an area we will kind of talk around a little bit through this presentation. And social media users are online for about 2.5 hours every day. So that's an average. So some people are spending even more time on there. Maybe as recruiters, that probably is even more because we probably spend a lot of our lives sitting on LinkedIn, which we do count as a social media platform. So onto the actual kind of points we want to kind of talk around today. We think that there's going to be a much more kind of personal driven approach to how we kind of interact on social media over the kind of coming years. Now, we're all kind of familiar with personal branding and the power of that. Well, we think that's going to just kind of become even more kind of prominent over the next few years, with people really wanting to kind of trust in people as opposed to trust in brands. Now, that's actually quite easier for the smaller recruitment agencies that are kind of on the call, because you're probably 1 or 2 man kind of businesses, maybe a little bit more, but it gives you opportunity to actually kind of build yourself a personal brand over your corporate brand. Now, I know traditional thinking would say that, all right, we don't want people we want people to know the company we work for. Well, actually, in the end, people are more kind of attracted to the final person they're going to be talking to on the phone, or they're going to be interacting with, than actually the brand themselves, and they've got more loyalty to a person than they have necessarily to a brand. So that's something to maybe not kind of concern yourself over, that more people are connected with you than know you than know the brand that you work for. I think it's actually a positive. And we're going to be looking at things like kind of the kind of personal channels that you might want to kind of really be kind of delving into. Obviously TikTok, which is going to be I think the kind of the name that I say the most over this through this presentation. Things like YouTube and Instagram, these are really kind of channels where you can kind of really get your kind of personality across. I have obviously kind of got a big thing around kind of LinkedIn next. And that is an area now that because of LinkedIn really wanting to compete with the likes of Facebook, it really is pushing that kind of that personal brand kind of engagement and interactions, and really want you to kind of use it more like you would do one of these other kind of more social kind of channels, and trying to get away from it being business channel. Now, it feels some people might find that kind of that feels a bit kind of uncomfortable, that it's not necessarily the way we've always kind of used it, but it's definitely the way that LinkedIn want you to start using the platform, and they really want you to kind of go down that route. So if you want to know a bit more around kind of the kind of things to talk around and what personal branding can really means, then either stick a note into the chat. We can kind of pick that up towards the end. Social channels as search engines, and so for any of you who have kind of got kids, will probably know that they get most of their information around what's happening in the world through social media, and not necessarily from a traditional news channel or from something like doing a search on Google. So there's a kind of a mindset change in the way that people that we have to think about how people are using social media, the fact that that's their kind of point of information. So we have to think, right, how do we kind of make sure that we optimize our kind of post to be found in a social search, and it's not too different than the way that you might well do it previously in kind of another thing. So we're talking about things like kind of the right kind of hashtags, the way that you want to kind of name check people in those kinds of things, and make sure that your post is actually relevant to what you're talking around. It's very easy to kind of ramble almost on social media sometimes, and actually kind of not necessarily kind of get to the point. But when you think, right, well, this is actually going to appear in someone's search, and it might be of real relevance, then those are the kind of things you need to kind of just kind of get used to when you're kind of creating your social posts. And the fact that kind of social actually is becoming more of a search engine over Google than anything else. I mean, Google is still the kind of world's top search engine, but YouTube is the second world's top search engine after that. So it is kind of worth considering that those points. Also, social posts are now will start to appear in Google as well. So kind of optimizing it almost for search engine optimization, your social posts is going to make a kind of difference over the next kind of coming years. And a way of really kind of helping your kind of getting your kind of digging deep into your social post is to kind of think about location and geotagging and things you can kind of do in much more of the kind of more sophisticated social media management tools. You can kind of add you can define locations and geotagging, and that's something that has been with us for a while, but actually helps when it comes to kind of search, because obviously you know that recruitment can be very localized. So making sure that your social posts are optimized for a certain locations is going to become just as important. And I said I was going to talk a lot around TikTok. Well, short form video is what is going to be going to become the norm over the next kind of few years. Obviously, with the emergence of TikTok, has really kind of brought that to the forefront. And when we talk about short form video, we're talking around things, that 30-second kind of reel, where it is either, initially people just thought kind of TikTok was about people kind of doing silly dances and things like that, or cat videos, but it's much more beyond that now. It has really kind of grown as a platform. So short form video, there's versions of that obviously on TikTok. Instagram Reels is what we call short form video. YouTube Shorts as well now. TikTok has this really kind of an element in it around micro learning. So there's an opportunity to kind of tap into that. It's a really good way of kind of adding value around that kind of micro learning. So something you can kind of get across to people in a very short space of time. The other thing that, and I tend to talk about this a lot and that we don't do enough of in the recruitment space, is influencer marketing. So if this isn't something that you kind of really want to do as a business, it is worth kind of aligning yourself with someone who does do it really well, who's in the spaces that you want to kind of move into. And that would be kind of classed as influencer marketing. So there will be, for instance, if you're in the education space, I'm sure there are teachers probably on TikTok who are kind of talking about the kind of things that you might want to talk about. So it's worth aligning with them, maybe reach out to them and see if there is some kind of partnership that you can come up with. So you don't have to be the person in front of the camera and learn how to use these platforms, but you can kind of, you can lean into someone else's kind of knowledge on how to get the best out of this kind of platform. The other thing that's worth kind of considering is, if you are going to move into kind of short form video marketing, is is mute viewing. So the majority of people who watch videos on YouTube probably watch them with the sound off. So it is great to kind of understand, right, are you able to put on Are you able to add content that can be viewed while being on mute? Does it have captions, that kind of thing? Can you automate the captions? A lot of these platforms do automate that kind of stuff now, so that is actually a must. And that kind of delves into a little bit the kind of the things around kind of diversity and inclusion and equity. Is very good for those those kind of audiences as well. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So niche communities. This is something that, again, I've been talking around for a while, and I think, again, we don't do enough within recruitment, but it's getting to a point now where we need to start kind of looking beyond the usual platforms that we have kind of interacted with for the past kind of 10 or 15 years. So I'm talking about looking beyond LinkedIn for regards to the recruitment space, but also maybe beyond Facebook. So there are lots of kind of different channels and platforms out there, the likes of Discord and Reddit, and I've added WhatsApp. But Discord and Reddit are kind of other, ready built communities by people who want to be in those communities and managed by people who are part of those communities. Not the easiest places to necessarily to get your head around, and not necessarily the easiest places to infiltrate, as it were. But they're definitely places where the kind of that are untapped when it comes to kind of recruitment. So it's definitely worth kind of considering, are there kind of groups on here that of communities that you want to be kind of you can add value to, and then eventually try and kind of either find roles for or kind of work with. So I think it's kind of worth looking at. Now, Discord and Reddit are just two of the ones I picked up. There's lots out there nowadays. If you want to kind of go around setting up your own little kind of niche community, we always suggest to kind of think about a WhatsApp group and kind of create those. They're really easy to create. It's obviously free, and it just takes a little bit of kind of community management on your part. And obviously, you can do it from your phone, you can do it from your desktop. And I think coming soon, you won't even need a phone number to use WhatsApp. You just be able to create an account and use it that way as well. So that's coming soon. However, if we are still looking at things like kind of Facebook, the Facebook algorithm is now has a preference towards what is going on in the groups that you are a member of. So it definitely kind of wants people to kind of create groups, be part of groups, and it's going to use that as part of, and it really gives that kind of emphasis in the algorithm. So that might be a channel. If you know that you've got an audience on Facebook, that is probably one of the places to kind of think about kind of creating a niche group and trying to kind of build out. And obviously communities are a great way to kind of to target the value that you can add into there, right? So you have kind of control over it. You can kind of add any of the kind of add roles, add news, whatever you want into those groups, because you're the kind of community manager. So you've got a bit more of a ready-made audience waiting for you, instead of a slightly more kind of spray and pray approach that you kind of get with other kind of when you're using social media sometimes. The metaverse. So this is the metaverse is you're going to hear going to continually hear a lot more around it over the coming years. Not necessarily what we would class as a social media channel, but definitely a place where social interaction is going to and does happen. It will kind of over the next kind of a few years, obviously Meta / kind of Facebook, who are kind of driving this, the technology and how this actually, and the platform itself will become more user friendly, and it will become kind of wider adopted. The fact that you won't need to the fact that everybody thinks it's kind of a virtuality, that kind of message will kind of disappear, that it doesn't have to be, it's not a virtuality. So the likes of Roblox, the likes of Fortnite also are kind of turning into their own kind of metaverses, where beyond what you would normally do, and there's other kind of ways to interact with other kind of users of those platforms, from watching virtual concerts to watching virtual movies to just kind of general interaction. So it's something that is going to have an influence on the recruitment space. If it happens this year, I'm not sure, but it's telling that the likes of kind of Samsung and some of these bigger businesses are either creating their own metaverses or buying up virtual land in kind of these metaverses. For at some point that will be kind of where they think there's going to be ways to add value and a revenue stream for them. Out of interest, and again, maybe if anyone's kind of seen this, but the Accenture now have their own metaverse building department. So you can go onto Accenture.com and you can order a metaverse created for you from them. So obviously they see that there's legs in this as well, but it is kind of coming, and it's definitely something that we will be kind of have a part in. Social advertising. This is something that we kind of probably don't do enough of, but is becoming easier and easier. And we think that it's going to kind of play a bigger part over the next year. So one of the things we always kind of get asked is, if you're starting from scratch, how do you go about kind of building these, or finding the people to join your kind of your groups or your communities? Well, advertising is the best, one of the faster way to do it. It's still pretty kind of cost effective apart from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is probably one of the most expensive ways to kind of advertising platform, but Facebook, which then if you're advertising on Facebook, you can obviously advertise on Instagram from there as well. It's still actually very kind of cost effective, and because of the kind of the way the targeting works, it is a really easy way and quick way to kind of build out your communities and get your message, your brand, yourself in front of the kind of people that you want to talk to. So for as little as kind of £50 behind a campaign, you can probably kind of get yourself several kind of up to 10-15,000 views on whatever your advert is, and probably kind of push people towards the pages that you want to you're advertising, or the what you want them to do. It's easy to be kind of very targeted. Obviously, you know, the volume of information that's put into something like kind of Facebook is then used on the advertising platform. So the people are pretty free with the amount of information they put onto Facebook, and also just what Facebook kind of just gleans from that information. That's all there for advertisers to tap into and to get their adverts in front of people. And basically now most platforms have a paid for kind of advertising kind of version, so as TikTok, Instagram, even the likes of the kind of Reddit and Discord. Those kind of also have kind of the ability to put adverts in. So that might be the way to kind of start and kick off your influence within those different platforms as well. Brutal authenticity. So this is something that you'll kind of see probably more and more people doing on LinkedIn, is being very personal about and very open about their kind of challenges in life, challenges in business. But it is becoming one of these things that audiences are kind of not necessarily craving, but definitely appreciate. That and again, it feeds into that kind of personal branding piece that we talked about earlier. Is it definitely builds trust in your brand and in yourself, with the kind of as being as authentic as possible. It definitely kind of helps you align with the audience's kind of own sensibilities. You know, being a bit more kind of open with how things are kind of going definitely aligns you with what other people you're trying to kind of attract are kind of going through and talking about themselves. And from a diversity, inclusion, and equity kind of point of view, it is almost kind of a given that you need to kind of be as authentic as possible. And when we're talking about authentic, we're not just talking about kind of laying your kind of life story online. It just means that basically just not lying basically online and kind of having too much of an ego. We've all seen those kinds of posts again on LinkedIn. So, and we know when someone is kind of there's a bit of virtue signaling kind of going on, things like that. So that's the kind of thing that we want to try and steer clear of, to try and be as kind of open and authentic as possible with your kind of your social interactions. And social listening is kind of something that we just don't do enough of. Social listening really means is being able to kind of use the kind of social channels and social platforms to either for kind of market research, or just listen to people what people are talking around the kind of the subjects that you're interested in, or talking around your brand as well. It's no longer the kind of, you don't no longer need kind of watching services and things like this. You know, it's easy to kind of to set up a search term, or for instance on Twitter, and you know, follow certain kind of terms and hashtags and brand names and all those kinds of things about, so you can kind of pick up on what is being said about, you know, certain topics, certain subjects. And again, you can do that on all the channels. On LinkedIn, for instance, you can follow hashtags. So it's easier now to kind of do that kind of social listening piece. And again, these platforms kind of really want you to kind of use it in those kind of terms, because again, it feeds into that point of information where they want you to use them as your kind of news outlet, as opposed to kind of going to wherever else, BBC, Sky, etc. So getting involved in kind of social listening, following hashtags is now easier than ever, and it's definitely something that you want to kind of try and get involved in, because it's not just listening about your brand, but it might be great for kind of market intel, for who's hiring, who's not hiring, who's looking to be hired. That kind of thing is all kind of can now be kind of pretty much automated. Um, and as people might know, because I've got these big headphones and a huge, great big microphone in front of me, social audio and audio generally is one of the kind of areas that I have a specific interest in. But now it's much more kind of in place on most of the social media platforms, basically. So if you're creating now an event on LinkedIn, you can create an audio event, which is kind of almost like a live radio show on LinkedIn. So people can kind of drop in, listen in to, if if it's just you or you're having a conversation with someone else, it's basically like an audio room. So you've kind of got your guest, and you kind of interview them or talk to them. You've got an audience who then you can bring onto the audio space as well. And this is something that LinkedIn is kind of pretty much rolled out for everybody now. Pretty easy to do. You don't need any kind of any third-party software or anything like that. Unlike if you were live streaming video, audio rooms, you can just kind of set up and run with it. Same with kind of Twitter rooms as well. They do basically exactly the same kind of principle. So you can kind of just kind of create those events, crack on, and talk to your audience. Right, it's a great way to kind of talk directly to the people that you want to kind of talk to, and have them listen to you. Obviously, being a podcaster, I'm going to have podcasting in here as well. Yeah, again, the barrier to entry to podcasting is pretty minimal these days. So anyone, we do get a lot, as a podcaster, I tend to get a lot of people come to me asking how to set up and start their own kind of podcast. And actually, there's a couple of kind of really easy points, but you can get going pretty quickly. The great thing about that kind of content is that you can get your message out onto platforms that you probably wouldn't ever have a chance to have any interaction with, the likes of kind of Apple and Apple iTunes, Amazon, Spotify, places where probably people people you want to target are there, but you might not be able to do it unless you're kind of have an audio kind of content. And the other thing that we're kind of seeing more of, and I think that it's going to become more of, is what we call audializing everything. So, for instance, the ability to automatically create audio versions of pages on your website is a good example. So there's a couple of bits of technology out there now that are kind of coming along where you can basically automate, when a new page goes live on your website, it kind of clever piece of AI will literally kind of read that page and then create an audio versions for someone to listen to. Again, great for SEO, great for extra content, great for kind of diversity, and for people with kind of visual kind of impairments and things like that. Also, just a kind of a great little kind of optional extra to add more content to your way, and eventually probably be even better for things like kind of SEO, to have audio versions of all your pages. Something that we've been kind of playing around with, and I know there's a couple of different businesses that are out there that are kind of moving into that space, and I think is going to become more and more prevalent over the next year. And next up is social AI. So I would imagine maybe everybody on here has heard of ChatGPT, which is this a new. I was going to call it a chatbot, but it's not really a chatbot. It is a piece of kind of one of the more kind of sophisticated pieces of AI software that is freely available for everybody to use. You can hold conversations with it. You can ask it to do all kinds of things, and it almost near indistinguishable from having a conversation with a real human. It really is the kind of next level. So why mention this from a social point of view? Well, eventually this will become kind of the ability, you'll be able to kind of roll this out onto your website, so someone can have a kind of conversation with a version of this you have kind of programmed yourself to be to represent your business on your website, for instance. Currently, you can kind of go onto ChatGPT. You could technically ask it to write you a blog, write an article. You put in the kind of parameters and it will do that kind of stuff for you. It's not perfect, but it's definitely getting close. And the other thing is around on this is AI imaging. So where I've got those words AI imaging, that the picture behind that was created by AI. I typed in a couple of parameters, and it created that without anything. That is a completely original piece of artwork created specifically for this presentation by a bot. So again, how is that going to affect from a recruitment standpoint? From a marketing standpoint, it's very, if you can kind of create original pieces of artwork, then that's kind of cool. How that affects recruitment, not sure yet, but AI is kind of on its way, and these are kind of more practical ways of how it's going to be influencing how we kind of how we work and how we do business over the next year. So I'm just about to kind of wrap up, and I'll kind of stop sharing and come off, stop this, and we'll have a kind of answer any questions. But before I go, I just want to tell you about the Marketing Rules podcast, which is the podcast from Thinking Circles. So have a listen to that. We have recruitment kind of specific guest speakers, as well as people from the kind of tech industry. We have athletes and kind of influencers all there on there as well, kind of talking around kind of certain things and around business, tech, and mental health, all kinds of things we kind of cover. It is worth having a listen. We also have monthly recruitment research that is released via our kind of newsletter. So and it's exclusive to newsletter sign up. So if you sign up for the newsletter, you get exclusive access to our recruitment research every month. And that's me.